How come most DIYers own one of these, but the pros are probably going to reach for this one? In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the small details of hammers. One of the biggest differences between hammers is going to be the claw. This particular hammer is called a curved claw hammer. It's designed to help increase the leverage when removing nails. This hammer, on the other hand, is often called a rip hammer, and you'll notice that the claw is quite a bit more straight. And while it too can remove nails, it has a very different design purpose, primarily around demolition. Because the claw on the rip or framing hammer has a different approach angle, it makes it easier to get between boards or behind things to tear them apart. You'll notice the claw on the curved hammer is more thin in profile than it is on the ripping hammer. That thicker claw is going to withstand the forces of demolition a lot longer. A curved claw hammer, however, has a very different approach angle for the claw, and that makes it difficult to get in between objects. And it's particularly hard to get the claw into tight spaces. The rip hammer's slightly less aggressive approach angle of the claw makes demolition easier, but it makes pulling nails even harder. So what we can do to compensate for that is by sliding a small piece of block underneath the claw. And if you are using a rip hammer and you have a particularly stubborn nail, you're almost better off using a side-to-side motion. However, there are some occupations where removing a lot of nails is part of your work, and those people are probably going to grab the curved claw hammer first. Another reason the pros prefer the rip hammer is they tend to be heavier than a curved claw hammer. For both driving nails and demolition, this added weight tends to make them more productive overall. Typically, the pros are driving larger nails during the rough construction phase, and the added weight means less strokes, and less strokes means less work. In demolition, it's a major time saver as the extra weight gives it more punch when breaking things apart like old rotten wood or wallboard. Often you'll find rip hammers starting at about 16 ounces, and they go all the way up to as much as 32 ounces. Curved claw hammers, on the other hand, tend to be lighter overall, partially because they're better suited for driving trim nails or finish nails. A rip hammer wouldn't be good for this as it's too heavy and it can be hard to be precise with the tiny little nails. You can find heavier claw hammers, but usually they're limited in weight to about 16 ounces. If you're working with small nails often, a curved claw hammer is probably going to be your go-to tool. Hammers are available in a wide variety of materials. There's 4 basic types that we use in the handles. Wood is by far the most common, then steel, then fiberglass, and then composite. I guess I should mention that there's also titanium, but unless you want a small mortgage, you don't need one of those. Wood is very lightweight, it has decent grip, it's very economical, and it's easily replaced. Wood, however, doesn't stand up to the abuse of heavy nail pulling or hitting the head wrong. Over time, that abuse can actually take its toll on the handle itself, leading to wobbly heads or even a broken handle. Steel, on the other hand, doesn't have any of those problems. The problem is that over time, a steel hammer transfers a lot of the vibration into your hand and your arm, and this can cause fatigue and even injury. To get the best of both worlds, fiberglass and composite handles do an amazing job of dealing with missed strikes and pulling nails, but they don't transfer as much of the vibration to your arm, reducing fatigue and injury over time. It's a kind of harsh lesson to learn that over time, precision is actually more important than power. A bad aim only gets worse when you put a lot of weight and force behind it. For this reason, some hammers actually focus more on balance than they do on striking force. This is kind of counterintuitive because you might not achieve as much per hit, but you'll actually achieve more over time because you won't have as many missed hits. Overall, the hammer weight might actually be the exact same between 2 hammers, but the weight is more balanced over the body of the hammer and not so concentrated in the head. These hammers don't feel like they have as much force, but over time you'll actually get more done because you're going to be more accurate with each hit. If you struggle with accuracy, you may want to give a balanced hammer a look. Why does one hammer make this waffle mark, but another one doesn't leave a mark at all? Some hammers have what's called a milled face. Other hammers are smooth. This waffle face design is to help grip a nail when you're striking in awkward positions where the nail head might be at a slight angle. For example, toenailing or in a hard to reach spot. Some nails even have a similar matching waffle pattern on the head, which makes for really efficient striking. When you're working on heavy striking like framing nails, reach for the milled face. But when you're wanting to leave no trace, you'll want the smooth face. It's good for getting the nail set without leaving a mark. Some hammers have a nice novel little feature built into the head called a magnetic nail starter. This little guy can be super helpful when you need to start a nail in a high up, hard to reach area, or somewhere where you may have to reach down and you need to use your arm to support yourself so you don't have an arm to support the nail to start it. Most people can reach about 7 feet. And so sometimes if you're working on a wall that's 8 feet or more, just the length of your hammer alone can be the difference between getting to work and getting a nail started or having to go get a ladder. Sometimes a nail is in a really tight spot and that can make it really difficult to remove, especially with the claw hammer. Some hammers feature what is called a side nail puller. It's built into the head of the hammer and it allows you to simply move the hammer in from the side and use extra leverage to get the nail started. And then once it's moved out a little bit, now you should be able to reach it with the claw and go ahead and pull it the rest of the way out. You can actually do this with any claw hammer, even the rip claw hammer, just using the claw itself, but the side nail puller is a lot more convenient.